Welcome in, guys. Good to see you again here as we break down some of the Thunder's very best wins of the 2019-20 season thus far. Today, we're going to tackle a road victory just after the All-Star break. It was a 124-122 win up in Chicago. Another barn burner, another great game between these two teams this year. It was the second meeting after the first one was a 26-point comeback by the Thunder. This game was a tale of two halves. Guys, from a big picture standpoint, what did you take away from this game?
Well, I took away that the Thunder had to fight for their lives to get a win, which they did. And guys, remember, this was the third game back from the All-Star break. And I think we all were feeling great about what we saw from this team immediately after having that week off. They knocked off Denver, a high-caliber opponent, a division leader, then took down San Antonio in a massive home court rout, went on the road to Chicago and jumped up early and then had to fight for their lives to get the win. But in the standings, it helped them protect the sixth spot and stave off Dallas, which they've done a good job of all season long once they grabbed that spot. But it helped them maintain a one-game lead, but it took the full 48 minutes.
Yeah, I go back to what Billy Donovan was saying coming out of kind of the All-Star break, and this team had got a big win over New Orleans to get a little momentum. They had the big win against Denver coming right out of the All-Star break. Billy Donovan said, hey, look, we still got a quarter of the season left to go, and the Thunder have been playing really, really well on the road. They had 8 consecutive road wins coming into that game. I was wondering if that was going to continue, and if you like offense, this is the game for you because there was just playmaking all over the place. And they always say that anybody can beat you on any given night. And this was a Bulls team that really wasn't playing all that well going into the game. They had lost 8 consecutive, snapped that with a win against Washington the previous Sunday. And so they might have had a little bit of confidence, and they came out absolutely ready to play for this Thunder team. So it ended up being a fun game and an offensive-oriented game that the Thunder were able to prevail.
Well, I agree with you, Fish. Fun was the word. I thought – that last, when you start a game like this against a team that's struggling, I know when I played, I don't want to play against a team that's lost 8 in a row, just won one, and they're still trying to answer a lot of questions. This was a game the Thunder had trouble with last year. Remember the start of that game? It was amazing the way the Thunder came out, going 11 of 17 in the first half from the three-point range. Danilo was off the charts. I thought he was incredible. Maybe 4 or 5 threes just in that first quarter alone. You go up big, and then, you're going to have some slack off. It's hard to stay up there at that level. If you got a 24-point lead on anybody at any point in time of the game, there's going to be some slackage. And when it happened, you answered the bell. I thought there was a lot of good things that came out of that game. Even though, it was a lot in question. You got that part of the schedule, sub 500 teams. And, you got to beat the sub 500 teams. Everybody's talking about, well, the Thunder were good at that. So were the Lakers and so were the Bucks too. They had better records against 500 teams. So, and you come out with a solid win. I thought it was just pretty good. It was a pretty good game. A lot of good stuff that came out of it.
Mike, just to follow up on that, it was a chance for the Thunder to show that they weren't a team that could just finish off games with a huge comeback. But this time they were in a position of strength, and they had to hold on to a win and kind of withstand a big comeback from a team that was maybe seen as the underdog. And there were so many pivotal moments within that game, especially in the second half, down in the fourth quarter. If you guys could pick one moment from that game, what would it be?
Well, I go back to about a minute to go. I mean, this was a game with some heavy artillery that was getting exchanged between these two teams. There was shot making all around. The Thunder built up that big 24-point lead only to see it evaporate in the third quarter. But if you go back and you look at about a minute to go left in the game, it was tight. The Thunder had a 1-point lead, and Dennis Schroeder drew a charge on Zach LaVine, and Zach LaVine couldn't be stopped up to that point. And I think it kind of set the tone for the Thunder defensively over the next couple of possessions. They had 3 consecutive stops. They had a Steven Adams block on the next possession, and then they forced a jump ball that ultimately allowed them to get a little bit of a cushion because the Bulls just kept coming. Zach LaVine just kept making shots. They refused to go away. The Thunder didn't win the game until the very final possession when LaVine missed that 3. But that defensive sequence there when the Thunder needed to get those 3 stops with a minute to go up by a point that allowed them to get the cushion that they needed to finally close out the game.
I think you're right.
Things that stand out. Go ahead, Michael.
I think you were right, Fish. I just want to make a real quick point. It was all about defense in the second half. And, you talking about Kobe White, who was having a game of his life, when he had 35 points. That was his third straight game of 30-plus points consecutively. LaVine, 27 in the second half. I think he dropped 41. It came down to your right, that play. It was all about defense at that point. They got the big stop, and that's what sealed the victory.
Make no mistake, the Bulls had this game circled. They know how embarrassing it is to squander a 26-point lead, which they did in Oklahoma City back in mid-December. So I think that once they got down in this game, and they were down 16 at halftime, they gave up 72 first-half points. I think the Thunder were warned in the locker room by Billy Donovan, they're going to rally. They're coming after you. This is a team defensively that turns teams over rapidly based on the style of play that they employed under Jim Boylan. So when they came breathing fire in that third quarter, the Thunder did not respond well. So, Nick, I know you've talked about they had to ward off a comeback. They had to come back themselves. They were down 4 late in the third quarter. Chris Paul is a guy I circle that I most remember about securing this win. One, he made a huge long-range jumper late in the third quarter to quiet the crowd, to give the Thunder at least a tad of thought about stabilizing for the fourth. Rather than being down 4, the crowd in a frenzy, they're within 2 going towards the fourth quarter with the ball, and we know how good they've been coming back in the fourth. But he made just an amazing play to meet defensively to secure the win. So LaVine, we know, took 35 shots in the game. Number 35 was the one that fell astray that helped the Thunder preserve a 2-point win. But Paul forced him off the inbounds pass to circle back towards midcourt rather than accelerate towards the basket or generate rhythm off, say, an escape dribble right or left. By doing that, LaVine had to jack an across his body prayer of a shot from well over 30 feet that fell well short. But we've seen Paul do things like that consistently during the season. That's what separates teams from wins and losses frequently, and he's just so heady. I was kind of mesmerized by the play because I'm thinking that was as good as it gets defensively because he's a much smaller defender than what Zach LaVine is, and LaVine, as we know, had it going, and we knew he'd take the final shot. Paul made it an extraordinarily difficult one.
In addition to the defense in crunch time, particularly on the road, it takes being able to keep that scoreboard moving. And Danilo Gallinari was a guy who made a huge play going baseline to continue to move that scoreboard in the right direction. And guys, it sealed the Thunder's 9th straight road win. That was an OKC era record. What did that say to you all just about the way that, especially during that portion of the season, this team was just executing down the stretch on the road time and again?
I think you can dismiss teams when they're really good at home and have a sub-500 record on the road because, come playoff time, you got to find a way to win road games. And for this team to consistently deliver the way that they do, I think is a trademark of the veteran leadership in the locker room and the fact that there are pockets in games that determine the outcome. And there are veterans on the Thunder roster like Gallinari, like Chris Paul, like Steven Adams to a lesser degree that recognize that. And they know when you got to bow your back and make a big offensive play to stop momentum. And then defensively when you got to dig in. And they've got some willing defenders that persevered in this game. We've talked about LaVine's extraordinarily explosive 41 points. He was 3 of 9 in the fourth quarter and scored 8 points. So they did a really good job against him, corralling him. And they did a really good job getting to the foul line. That's the other mitigating factor on the road. They attempted 26 more free throws in this game than the Bulls. They made 20 more. That was historic.
I think for me, Matt, whenever it let me know at this point, you're 17-11 against winning games 6 points or less. It convinced me at this point that, okay, this team is for real. It's not luck. It's not the rabbit's foot that you're coming back from behind and you're getting lucky. You can't get lucky that many times. Lightning does not strike in the same place that many times because you've had people step up. You talked about the play that Chris Paul had, at the end of the game on Zach LaVine. That play has repeated itself many times. You remember the Boston game we just saw, CP3 on Jason Tatum? Was that not the same play? That's what really convinced me at this point of the season, guys, that this team is for real. What they're doing, whether they're up, now they don't usually get up too big and lose a lead. They're generally coming from behind, one of the best in the league at doing that. Now, when this happened after this game, I said, okay, I'm scratching my head and I'm thinking we're on a flight heading back to Oklahoma City when we should have been heading to Milwaukee. We'll talk about that later. But I'm saying to myself, all right, this team is for real. This is no joke. This is how they play.
Mike, is that your way of saying you weren't happy with the scheduling?
Yeah, man, I'm still mad about it. I know it's over. I mean, we have to come all the way back to Oklahoma City, and then 2 days later, go just up the road to Milwaukee, which Milwaukee, is maybe an hour and a half bus ride? Yeah, I'm not sour grapes, but I had to mention it, Fish.
I don't blame you. 9th straight road went hard to believe that these guys lost their first 6 on the road in the season. I think it was just a good example of how far they had come.
Another show of just the turnaround that happened during the course of the season, really December, January, February, and into March, that this Thunder team was one of the very best in the Western Conference. Guys, this was a great one to watch. I know Thunder fans are loving to look back at some of these great games. Thanks for joining me.